The night was quiet, yet heavy with the sound of wind that cut through the streets. Snowflakes spun in the air like tiny silver sparks, dancing in circles before settling into white piles along the sidewalks. Under the dim light of a broken street lamp, a boy named Malik walked slowly, his arms wrapped tight around himself. His coat was too thin, the sleeves worn at the edges, and his shoes were soaked through from stepping into slush again and again. Malik was used to nights like this. He had learned how to find corners that shielded him from the worst of the cold, how to make a meal out of whatever little scraps came his way, and how to keep moving so that no one would notice just how small and alone he really was. Malik had no home to return to. The city, with its tall buildings and endless alleys, had become his shelter. He carried a small backpack, the only treasure he had. Inside were 2 pencils, a few crumpled sheets of paper with drawings, and a faded photo of his mother. On the back of the photo, in small letters, she had once written, "Stay kind, even when the world is not." Malik carried those words as much as he carried the photo. On that snowy night, the streets were almost empty. Stores were closed, their shutters pulled down, and cars moved slower than usual. Malik thought about sleeping under the awning of a bakery where the smell of bread still clung to the air. He hoped that maybe, just maybe, the owner would leave out bread that had gone stale. His stomach tightened, but he ignored it, pressing forward through the cold. Across the street, another figure moved, slower and heavier. It was an old man named Mr. Whitaker. He walked with effort, leaning slightly to one side, clutching a small paper bag close to his chest. The bag carried his medicine, something he needed every night. He lived alone in a small apartment, where silence was his only company. Years ago, his wife had passed, and his daughter had moved far away, too busy with her own life to visit often. The snow did not bother him much, but tonight his legs felt weaker than usual. As Malik walked, he noticed the old man struggling. He stopped, narrowed his eyes, and saw the man's foot slide on a patch of black ice. In an instant, Mr. Whitaker fell hard onto the sidewalk. The paper bag burst open, spilling white pill bottles that rolled into the snow. His cane clattered to the side, and a low groan escaped his lips. Malik's heart skipped. For a second, he thought about walking away. After all, most people ignored him when he was the one in trouble. But his mother's words came to him again, "Stay kind." He rushed across the street, nearly slipping himself, and crouched beside the old man. "Sir, are you okay?" Malik asked, his voice trembling from both cold and worry. Mr. Whitaker's face was pale, his breath uneven. I can't get up," he whispered. His fingers shook as he tried to reach for the scattered medicine. Without hesitation, Malik gathered the pill bottles, brushing off the snow, and placed them carefully back in the bag. He then picked up the cane and leaned it against the wall. Mr. Whitaker tried to sit up, but the pain in his back stopped him. Malik quickly pulled pieces of cardboard from a nearby trash bin and set them against the wind to shield the old man. "You'll be okay," Malik said softly. "Just keep talking to me." He wrapped the man's scarf tighter around his neck, trying to keep him warm. As he moved, something shiny caught his eye. A wallet had slipped from the man's pocket. Malik picked it up. Inside, he saw a photo of a smiling woman holding flowers. "Is this your wife?" Malik asked gently. Mr. Whitaker's eyes softened, and he gave a small nod. "Yes, my Martha," he said, his voice weak but full of love. Malik placed the wallet back into the man's coat and gripped his hand firmly. He shouted for help, his voice echoing through the quiet streets. For a moment, it seemed no one would hear, but then a delivery driver stopped his van nearby. The man saw Malik waving and rushed over. Together, they called for an ambulance. When the paramedics arrived, they carefully lifted Mr. Whitaker onto a stretcher. Malik stepped back, watching as they secured him. Just as the ambulance doors were about to close, Mr. Whitaker raised his head slightly and asked, "What's your name, son?" "Malik," the boy answered, his voice clear even through the cold. "Thank you, Malik," Mr. Whitaker said before the doors shut. The siren wailed, and the ambulance disappeared into the snowy night. Malik stood alone in the street again. Snowflakes landed on his shoulders and hair, melting quickly against his skin. His hands were numb, his shoes soaked, but inside, he felt a small warmth. He had no bed to return to, no warm meal waiting, but he had done something good, something that mattered. He turned back toward the bakery awning, his stomach still empty, but his heart a little fuller. The city lights flickered against the snow as Malik walked on, unaware that this one act of kindness would soon change his life forever. Morning came slowly, like a gray blanket pulled across the sky. The storm had not stopped, it had only learned to breathe quieter. Malik woke near the bakery awning, his back stiff from the cold ground, his toes tingling with that sharp, needle-like feeling that comes before they go numb. He blew warm air into his hands and watched it fade in the chill. The door to the soup kitchen down the block would open soon. He had learned the timing by heart. When the clock in the corner store hit 8, steam began to rise from the soup kitchen's vents, and a kind voice would say, "Good morning, friends." He headed there now, footsteps light but careful, as if the snow might break. Inside the soup kitchen, the air smelled like onions, pepper, and fresh bread. A big pot simmered on the back stove. Volunteers in simple aprons moved with practiced kindness, setting out cups, bowls, and a basket of rolls. Malik took his place in line, head low but ears open. He liked to listen. That was how he kept safe. Listening told him where to sit, when to leave, and who might whisper his name without meaning to be kind. A volunteer with a wool hat smiled at him. "Hot soup?" she asked, already ladling it into a bowl. He nodded. The warmth in his hands felt like a small miracle. He took small sips so it would last, and he held the bowl close to his chest between each one, letting the heat sink into his bones. At a nearby table, two men talked about the storm. "They're clearing the underpass tonight," one said. "City trucks and all." Malik heard the words and felt a quiet drop in his stomach. The underpass was one of his fallback places when the wind was cruel. If the workers came with their bright vests and big hoses, he would need another plan. He glanced at his backpack under the table, as if it could answer for him. It could not. It held only paper, pencils, and that one photo. He took another slow sip of soup and reminded himself to keep moving, to stay kind, to think one step ahead. A volunteer pinned new flyers to a corkboard near the door. Malik did not look at them right away. Reading public boards drew attention, and attention could become questions. Instead, he finished his soup and took a roll, tearing it into small pieces so it felt like more. He tucked one piece into his pocket for later. Only then did he drift toward the board, trying to look like a boy who was just stretching his legs. A paper near the top carried a few simple words, seeking Malik the young helper from last night. His name. Clear as day. His first instinct was to step back. He scanned the notice. A community officer had posted it, and there was a phone number beneath. It did not say much more. It did not say where he could be found or how to catch him. Still, it felt like someone had written on a wall only he could see. He put his hands in his pockets and walked back to his seat. He thought of the old man, the scarf, the scattered medicine in the snow. He thought of the ambulance doors closing and the voice that asked for his name. Gratitude was a warm word, but words had not built Malik a bed. He had learned that promises could shift like shadows. He needed to be sure. He needed to stay careful. After breakfast, he headed for the library. The street lights still glowed, even though it was daytime, because the clouds made the sky heavy and low. The library doors opened with a soft hiss. The guards at the front desk knew him as the quiet boy who read old art books and stayed out of trouble. He always nodded hello, never spoke first, and kept his bag zipped. He chose a table near the heater and pulled out his pencils. On a fresh page, he drew the street from the night before. He shaded the ice with gentle strokes and made the snow look like soft dust. He drew a small figure bending over another small figure. He did not add faces. He liked the idea that the picture could belong to anyone who had ever helped or been helped on a cold night. A librarian rolled a cart of books across the carpet. The wheels made a sweet rustle. People found their places in the stacks like birds finding branches. Malik felt calm here. The rules were clear. Whisper. Read. Respect the quiet. He worked on his drawing for a long time, slowing only when his fingers began to ache from the cold that had followed him inside. He went to the bathroom to run warm water over his hands, and while he was there, he pulled off his wet socks and pressed them against the hand dryer one at a time. The rush of warm air made them flutter like small flags. He waited until they felt only slightly damp, then put them back on. At the hospital across town, Mr. Whitaker woke to the soft beep of a monitor and the kind voice of a nurse who checked his pulse and smiled with her eyes. The fall had shaken him, but nothing was broken. "You gave us a fright," the nurse said. "You'll be on your feet soon." Mr. Whitaker thanked her and asked about the boy. "He told you his name?" the nurse asked. "Yes," he said. "Malik." The nurse did not know more. The delivery driver had left a first name and a general corner. The city was wide. It could take weeks to find a single kind boy who knew how to slip through cracks without getting scraped. But Mr. Whitaker had time and a reason. After he was discharged, he started making calls. He phoned the pharmacy to tell them he was safe. He called the ambulance service to leave a thank you. He asked about the boy. He learned nothing, but he did not stop. He contacted the community officer who sometimes visited the senior center to talk about winter safety. "I'm looking for a boy named Malik," he said. "He helped me in the storm." The officer said she would post a note at the soup kitchen and keep it simple. Sometimes simple worked best. Back at the library, a boy Malik knew from the street slid into the seat across from him. His name was Devon. He wore a thin jacket and a grin that always tried to look tough and always failed a little around the edges. "Got a plan tonight?" Devon asked in a low voice. He eyed Malik's drawing. "You still doing those?" Malik nodded and tucked the sketchbook half closed, not to hide it but to protect it from spilled words. Devon leaned in. "Store on 3rd has a bin by the back door. Chips, fruit cups, the stuff they don't want to stock again. Come with me. We can grab a few things. No one's watching in this weather." He spoke like a person offering a map. Malik thought of the quiet roll in his pocket. He thought of rules, and of the way a single wrong turn could echo. "I'm good," Malik said. "I'll be fine." His voice had the softness of snow and the firmness of a door that was not going to open. Devon shrugged and stood. "Suit yourself," he said, but there was no anger in it. He tapped the table twice, then walked away, hands deep in his pockets, shoulders set against the cold. Malik wished he could hand him something better than a refusal. He wished he had enough for both of them. Maybe later, he thought. Maybe there would be a way. The afternoon deepened. The library windows turned into pale gray mirrors. Malik sharpened his pencil with a small plastic sharpener and caught the shavings in his hands so they would not fall to the carpet. He drew lines that felt like paths and light that felt like hope. At the same time, across a handful of blocks and phone trees, a message began to move in quiet circles. A boy named Malik had helped an old man during the storm. An old man named Mr. Whitaker was looking for him. The note at the soup kitchen was simple and kind. People read it while they waited for seconds or wrapped bread rolls in napkins to take away for later. Some nodded. Some did not look up. A few smiled and said, "Good kid," into their cups. Malik packed his things before sunset. He did not like to be outside when the light tipped from silver to blue. That was the hour when it became harder to tell a friend from a stranger. He slipped his sketchbook into his bag, zipped it, and slid the straps over his shoulders. His socks were almost dry now. His toes still ached, but the ache felt like something he could carry. He stepped out of the library into air that felt clean and sharp. Snow had begun to fall again, slower this time, as if the sky were tired. He could go to the underpass, but the trucks would come. He could find a new corner near the bus station, but there were too many eyes there and too many stories that ended with lost bags and bad luck. He walked toward the soup kitchen to see if the board still held his name. On the way, he passed the store Devon had mentioned. The back door was closed. A crate sat beside it with a piece of cardboard thrown across the top. He could not see what was inside. He did not stop. He kept his hands in his pockets and his head up. Simple choices were a kind of map. He wanted to walk toward better roads. When he reached the soup kitchen window, he peered in. Dinner had already been served. Chairs were stacked, counters wiped. The volunteer with the wool hat was sweeping the floor. Malik stood a foot back from the door, not wanting to be a burden after hours. He looked at the board through the glass. The flyer was still there. His name looked back at him like a question. He thought about the old man's face. Not the worry of the fall, but the steadiness in his eyes when he asked for Malik's name and said thank you. He thought about the photo of the woman in the wallet and the way Mr. Whitaker had breathed the word Martha as if it were a candle that could still give light. Kindness had to travel in both directions to stay alive. He felt that truth like a steady beat under his ribs. Still, he had learned to weigh every step. If he called, would someone demand papers he did not have? Would a door close behind him in a way that made leaving harder than staying? The world had taught him to ask these questions. He did not blame the world for that. He simply kept asking until the answers felt right. Snow made the sidewalks soft. Sound fell with it. Malik stood there, thinking, as the sky dimmed. He remembered a lesson he had taught himself many winter nights ago: when you do not know what to do, do the next kind thing that is safe. He could not promise himself a home tonight. He could not change the trucks that would clear the underpass. But he could do one simple, safe, kind thing now. He took a small pencil stub from his pocket and wrote on the edge of the flyer through the glass, pressing carefully so the lead would show, "I'm okay. Thank you." He added a tiny drawing of two hands, one older, one younger, holding a scarf between them. Then he stepped back, looked at the mark he had made, and let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. Across town, Mr. Whitaker buttoned his coat and paused by his front door. The room was quiet, but it did not feel so empty now. He had placed his wife's photo on the table by the lamp, facing the chair where he liked to read. He touched the frame and said, "I made a promise, love. I'm trying to keep it." He took his cane and his hat and set out into the evening once more, not because his body wanted a walk, but because his heart wanted to follow a small, good thread that led, he hoped, back to a boy with careful eyes and steady hands. Back under the dim street lamp outside the soup kitchen, Malik raised his hood and started toward the library again. He would rest for a while in the lobby until closing. He would think of a new place to sleep where the wind did not bite so hard. He would keep his sketchbook close and his pace steady. He would not run from his own name, but he would not throw it into the air, either. He had learned patience. He had learned that storms can quiet without ever truly ending. And he had learned that sometimes what begins as a small choice, write a note, return a wallet, keep a promise, can open a door you cannot yet see. He walked on, footprints soft in the new snow, the city around him like a whispered story that was not finished. Somewhere, a bell chimed the hour. Somewhere else, a phone rang. In between those sounds, Malik made his next promise to himself: he would stay kind, even when the road ahead was unclear. He would keep moving toward the light that waited behind the clouds, and if he met that old man again, he would shake his hand, look him in the eyes, and say, "I'm still here." Dusk came early, turning the sky the color of slate. The storm had softened, but the air still carried the steady hush of falling snow. Malik walked with his hood up and his hands tucked under his arms for warmth. The soup kitchen lights glowed like a small lighthouse at the end of the block. He was not sure why his feet led him there again. Maybe it was the note he had left on the flyer. Maybe it was the hope, small and careful, that the old man had seen it. Inside, dinner service had just begun. The room smelled of tomato stew and fresh rolls. Voices blended in a low, friendly hum. Volunteers moved in gentle lines: ladle, bowl, smile, next person. The woman in the wool hat spotted Malik and tipped her head toward a corner seat. "There's space by the radiator," she said. He nodded, grateful for the warmth. He set his backpack at his feet and slid his sketchbook onto the table, tracing the edge of the cover with his finger. He did not open it yet. He wanted to feel steady first. The door opened behind him. Cold air brushed his neck. He did not turn at once. Doors opened and closed all the time. But then he heard a cane tap the floor and a voice say, "Excuse me," with careful politeness. Malik looked up. Mr. Whitaker stood in the doorway, cheeks pink from the wind, hat held against his chest, eyes scanning the room as if he were searching a classroom for a particular student. When his gaze landed on Malik, his face brightened with tender relief. He lifted his hand in a small wave, the kind of wave that says, "I see you. I am glad you are here." Malik stood without thinking. They met halfway, by the end of the serving table, stopping short of a hug but standing close enough to share the same pocket of warm air. For a second, neither spoke. Then Mr. Whitaker said, "Malik," as if the name itself was a thank you. "Sir," Malik replied. The woman in the wool hat smiled and touched Mr. Whitaker's elbow. "Sit, both of you," she said. "Hot bowls coming." They sat at the corner table. Malik tucked his backpack under his chair and put a foot through one of the straps the way he always did. He had learned small habits like this the way people learn to breathe. "Are you all right?" Mr. Whitaker asked, leaning forward. "After that night?" "I'm okay," Malik said. "And you?" "Bruised, but fine," Mr. Whitaker answered. "The nurse says I bounce, just slower now." They both smiled. 2 bowls arrived, and steam rose between them like a soft curtain. Mr. Whitaker wrapped his hands around the warm ceramic and released a long breath. He seemed lighter now that he had found the person he had been seeking. "I've been trying to find you," he said. "I left messages. I posted that note." "I was hoping I saw it," Malik said. He pointed with his chin toward the board. "I left a small drawing." "I saw that today," Mr. Whitaker said, eyes bright. "That little sketch, 2 hands and a scarf. You have a strong line, Malik. Are you an artist?" Malik hesitated. "I like to draw," he said. "It keeps me calm." "Art can do that," Mr. Whitaker replied. "My wife believed that, too." He took out his wallet, opened it with care, and showed the photo Malik had seen in the snow, a woman with a kind smile, holding flowers. "Her name was Martha," he said. "She used to organize small community projects. After she passed, I started a little fund in her name. Nothing grand. Just a way to keep a few lights on in the winter, to help someone get an ID, to buy a warm coat when a warm coat makes all the difference." Malik listened, spoon pausing in the air. The words were simple and steady. They felt like someone laying squares of cloth into a pattern that made sense. "You were out there to deliver something that night," he said quietly. "Even in the storm." "I made a promise to her," Mr. Whitaker said. I try to keep it. They ate in a friendly quiet, the kind that does not press. When the bowls were empty, Mr. Whitaker slid a small card across the table. It was a plain white card with his name and a phone number written neatly in blue ink. I don't want to push you into anything, he said. But if you'll let me, I'd like to help you find a warm bed for tonight. And maybe get you a pair of boots that don't pretend they're boats. Malik looked down at his shoes. The seams had split near the toes, and his socks showed dark and thin. He felt heat rise in his face, not from shame, but from the sudden kindness of being seen and not judged. Still, old caution stirred. I don't want trouble, he said. Sometimes help comes with a door that locks behind you. I understand, Mr. Whitaker said. He spoke with a calm that felt like a blanket. No doors you don't choose. No promises you don't make. We can start small. A hot drink. A store 2 blocks away. You pick the boots yourself. Malik considered. He loosened his foot from the backpack strap and caught the edge of the sketchbook with 2 fingers. He thought about how it felt to draw when he was warm and fed, how lines came easier when his hands stopped shaking. He gave a small nod. Okay, he said. We can try small. Small is how big things begin, Mr. Whitaker said, smiling. They stood to leave. In that short moment between standing up and taking the first step, Malik glanced down. His backpack was gone. He froze. The chair leg scraped the floor as he moved it back. He looked under the table, then behind his chair, then at the tables nearby. Empty space gaped where the bag had been. The room tilted a little in his vision, not from movement but from a sudden, hollow feeling. The sketchbook. The pencils. The photo with the soft writing on the back. The woman in the wool hat saw his face change and hurried over. What happened? My bag, Malik said, voice tight. It was here. He bent, looked again, as if the bag might be playing a trick on him, hiding in plain sight. It was not. A volunteer at the door shook his head, worried and apologetic. I didn't see anyone take it, he said. I'm so sorry. For a heartbeat, everything inside Malik went quiet. He did not cry. He did not shout. His shoulders simply lowered, the way they do when a person is bracing for wind they cannot stop. He pressed his lips together and looked at the floor. Mr. Whitaker reached out but did not touch his shoulder yet. He asked softly, what was in it? Drawings, Malik said. Pencils. And a photo. The last word sounded like glass. We'll check the bins by the door and the sidewalk outside, Mr. Whitaker said. Sometimes people set things down when their hands are full. He turned to the volunteers. Would you mind looking near the serving line? I'll check outside. They searched, quick and careful, but the bag did not appear. The hall clock ticked with too much clarity. Malik stood by the table, hands open at his sides. He told himself that paper is only paper, that a picture in your mind can be drawn again. But the photo was a different kind of paper. It carried more than an image. It carried a promise, a voice, a reminder. Mr. Whitaker returned, snow dusting his hat. He read the truth in Malik's face. Some things we can't get back, he said softly. I wish I could change that for you. Malik gave a single nod. He took a breath and let it out slowly. It's okay, he said, though it wasn't. I can start again. You shouldn't have to start alone, Mr. Whitaker said. Come with me, if you want. We'll make a police note, just to be proper. After that, the store. Then we'll see about a warm place to sleep. They walked to the small neighborhood precinct a few blocks away. The snow underfoot squeaked. Inside, a desk officer wrote down the details, kind but brisk. If it turns up, we'll call the kitchen, he said. Malik thanked him. He added, after a moment's pause, if someone finds a photo of a woman with flowers, could you keep it safe? The officer nodded, understanding more than his brief words could hold. From there, they went to the discount store. The aisle smelled faintly of rubber and cardboard. Mr. Whitaker steered them toward the winter section. "Pick a parka that feels like a hug," he said. Malik smiled for the first time since the bag disappeared. He tried on coats until one felt right thick, with a zipper that didn't stick, and pockets deep enough for a sketchbook. Boots came next, sturdy and warm. A clerk helped find the right size and laced them snug. Malik stood and bounced on his heels. His toes felt like they were waking up from a long, dull dream. "One more stop," Mr. Whitaker said, guiding him to the school aisle. He placed a spiral notebook and 2 good pencils in the basket, along with a small eraser shaped like a star. He looked at Malik, checking for any hint of pressure. "Is this okay?" "Yes," Malik said. He touched the notebook as if it might vanish. "Thank you." At the register, Mr. Whitaker paid and tucked the receipt into his pocket. Outside, they stood under the awning as snow drifted past the street light like slow confetti. Malik held the notebook to his chest. He did not say much. Gratitude sometimes came out as quiet. "Tea?" Mr. Whitaker asked, nodding toward a small cafe next door. "Just to warm up before we talk with a social worker I know." Malik hesitated, then agreed. Inside the cafe, their coats steamed a little in the heat. They shared a pot of tea and a plate with 2 simple cookies. Malik did not rush. He stirred the tea and watched the swirl settle. He took a small bite and then another, letting the sweetness soften the sharp corners of the evening. "I want to be clear," Mr. Whitaker said, setting his cup down. "I can introduce you to people who can help, but you choose what happens next. If you say stop, we stop. If you say try, we try." "Why?" Malik asked, not with suspicion, but with true curiosity. "Why help me?" "Because you helped me when you didn't have to," Mr. Whitaker said. "Because someone once helped me when I was young and lost, and I never forgot the way it felt when a door opened instead of closing. And because I promised Martha I would pay attention when kindness appeared in front of me." Malik looked down at his hands. They trembled less now. He turned the notebook over, then opened it to the first page. The clean paper glowed softly. He wrote his name at the top, small and careful, Malik. The letters looked steady. He drew a line beneath them, then added 2 small figures in the corner, one leaning on a cane, one offering a scarf. He did not press hard. He did not need to. The lines appeared anyway. "Okay," he said at last. "We can try." They finished their tea and stepped back into the night. The snow had grown finer, like sifted sugar. The city sounded softer, too, as if the streets were listening. They walked side by side, not fast, not slow, just at the kind of pace that says, "We're not running anymore." At the corner, a bus hissed and opened its doors. Mr. Whitaker tapped his card twice and nodded for Malik to go ahead. They sat near the front. The windows fogged around the edges, and the world outside turned into a gentle blur of shapes and light. Malik traced a tiny heart in the fog with the tip of his finger, then wiped it away before it drew attention. Old habits, kept and reshaped. "Tomorrow," Mr. Whitaker said, "if you like, we'll meet a friend at the community center. Her name is Miss Alvarez. She knows how to untangle forms and make plans feel less like traps." "Okay," Malik said, calmer now. He pulled his new coat tighter and felt the quiet strength of good fabric. The bus rolled on, carrying them toward what felt like the edge of a map he had drawn by himself for too long. He was not handing over the pencil. He was simply letting someone else hold the other end of the paper. When they stepped off the bus, the night had deepened. Street lights painted bright coins on the ground. Mr. Whitaker walked Malik back toward the soup kitchen so he could pick up a spare scarf the volunteers kept in a bin by the door. The woman in the wool hat waved. "Any luck with the bag?" she asked. They shook their heads. She pressed a pair of knit gloves into Malik's hands. "For now," she said. "Start again strong." "Thank you," Malik said, the words firm. They paused outside, not wanting to break the moment too quickly. Snow gathered in the crease of Mr. Whitaker's hat and on Malik's new boots. "You know," Mr. Whitaker said, "there's a poster contest at the community center this month. The theme is winter safety. First prize is a small scholarship for art supplies. You could draw what kindness looks like in a storm." Malik turned the idea over. It settled neatly. "Kindness looks like two people carrying the same scarf," he said. "That sounds like a winner to me," Mr. Whitaker replied, smiling. They said good night with the ease of people who would see each other again soon. Malik watched the older man walk away, cane steady, shoulders straight. Then he looked down at his notebook and wrote a second word under his name, "Begin." He closed the cover, slid it into his new parka pocket, and started down the block. The night felt less heavy. The future, while still hidden by snow, seemed to give off a faint, believable light. Morning light crept in as a thin stripe under the clouds. Malik met Mr. Whitaker outside the community center, his new boots making soft prints in the snow. The building smelled like lemon cleaner and warm air. Inside, a bulletin board carried flyers for classes and a poster about safe winter nights. A receptionist waved and pointed them down the hall. "Miss Alvarez will see you in room 2, she said with an easy smile that made the room feel safer. Miss Alvarez stood to greet them. She was small, with kind eyes and a voice that sounded steady even when she spoke softly. "Hi, Malik," she said, shaking his hand as if he were a guest, not a problem to solve. "I'm glad you came in. We'll take this step by step. Nothing today locks you into anything you don't want." She motioned to 2 chairs and poured water into paper cups. "First, I want to hear your goals. Tonight. This week. This month. If that feels too big, we start with tonight." Malik sat straight and looked at the calendar on the wall, not at the whole month, just at today's square with a circle around it. "I want a warm place to sleep," he said. "Close to the library and the soup kitchen if possible. I want to keep my drawings safe. I need new ID one day." He swallowed. "I lost a photo. I can't get it back." "I'm sorry about the photo," Miss Alvarez said. "You can still carry the memory. Sometimes we rebuild the pieces, and they still hold." She slid a small folder across the table. Inside were forms with simple boxes. "Here are 3 options," she continued. 1. An emergency bed for tonight at a center nearby. 2. A host home with a vetted family for a few nights while we work on ID and school. 3. A day program plus a safe night space, but it's farther away. We'll choose what keeps you close to the places you trust." Mr. Whitaker sat quiet, letting Malik lead. Malik read the pages. He took time. He asked what host home meant. Miss Alvarez explained it plainly: a screened adult or family, trained to support youth, short-term, with clear rules and a number to call at any hour. You can leave if you feel unsafe. You keep your belongings with you. We can set a daily check-in with me or Mr. Whitaker. One night at a time, she said. One night at a time, Malik repeated, testing the shape of those words. He nodded. I can try that. They began the paperwork. Miss Alvarez moved at a calm pace, reading each line out loud, letting Malik answer without rush. When he did not know, she wrote to be confirmed and smiled like that was a normal thing to write. We'll handle ID, she said. There's a list of steps, but we've climbed longer ladders before. We'll get there. Malik breathed easier. This was a map that did not trap him, it drew routes and exits. A cough caught Mr. Whitaker mid-sentence. It bent him for a small moment. Malik noticed at once, pushing the water toward him and placing a hand near his elbow without grabbing. "I'm okay," Mr. Whitaker managed with a small smile. "Just the winter talking." He took a careful sip, and the cough eased. The tiny change in roles, Malik steadying, Mr. Whitaker receiving, made the room feel more equal, like a bridge with weight on both sides. They took a short break. Malik stepped into the hallway where a window looked out on the parking lot. Snow slid off a car in one smooth sheet. He thought of the underpass and the trucks that would come tonight to clear it. He pictured his usual spots turning into bright, cold emptiness. The thought made his chest tighten. He looked down at his new boots and pressed his heels gently against the floor. He was not alone in this hallway. He did not have to go back to shadows. On the way back to room 2, Malik ran into Devon near a vending machine. Devon wore the same thin jacket and a guarded look. "So it's true," Devon said. "You're in there with people who make rules." His voice had more worry than anger. "They make plans," Malik said. "I choose the rules I can live with. You should come inside. They have cocoa at the drop-in and a phone charger station." He reached into his pocket and handed Devon a small center flyer that he had folded in half. "No pressure. Just warmth." Devon looked down at the paper like it might sting. "You changing up on us?" he asked, but softer now, like he wanted a reason to come closer, not a reason to stay away. "I'm changing my nights," Malik said simply. "Not the way I see people. Come with me to the art room later. I'll show you a pencil trick." Miss Alvarez returned and gave Malik the host home details. "A place called the Hart House has a spare room," she said. "It's run by Mrs. Hart, who has passed all checks. She hosts one youth at a time. Close to the center, 3 bus stops from the library, and they serve breakfast. Are you willing to meet her this afternoon?" Malik nodded, the kind of nod that is both yes and keep breathing. They walked over together. The Hart House sat on a quiet street lined with small trees wrapped in fairy lights. The porch had a welcome mat that said, "One day at a time." Mrs. Hart opened the door before they knocked twice. She wore a thick sweater and had gentle eyes that took Malik in without staring through him. "Hi, Malik," she said. "I'm Cynthia Hart. Inside is warm. There is soup on the stove. House rule number 1, you are safe here. House rule number 2, we talk to each other, we don't guess. House rule number 3, we respect sleep. Everything else we can sort out together." They toured the small room. It held a twin bed, a clean blanket, a desk lamp, and a chair that rolled just a little. Malik opened the desk drawer and found a stack of lined paper and a small box of pencils, as if someone had planned for him. His throat felt tight in a new way, like gratitude was trying to learn how to speak. "We can try one night," Mrs. Hart said. "If it feels okay, we try a second. You set the pace." She gave him a laminated card with the house phone and the center's number. "You can call the center anytime. You can call me anytime. Dinner is at 6. Quiet is at 10. If you wake up in the night, there's peppermint tea in the kitchen." Malik looked at Mr. Whitaker and Miss Alvarez. They held still, letting him decide. He set his backpack, new, donated, at the center by the desk and pressed his fingers against the smooth wood. "One night," he said. "Yes." They returned to the center for the afternoon drop-in. In the art room, Mrs. Nguyen, a volunteer art teacher with paint on her sleeves and a smile that made space, peered over Malik's shoulder as he drew. "You have a steady hand," she said. "You tell stories with small lines. Have you seen the city poster contest? The theme is winter safety and community care. First prize is art supplies from a local store. The deadline is in 5 days. I think you have something to say." Malik stared at the blank poster board she slid toward him. A thought formed, 2 hands, one old and one young, lifting a scarf together while snow fell. In the corner, a small street lamp would cast soft light. At the bottom, simple words, warm hands save lives. He sketched lightly, finding the curve of fingers and the angle of a wrist. The lines felt like breathing. Devon drifted into the doorway and leaned on the frame, not crossing the line yet. "You said pencil trick," he murmured. Malik waved him in. "Sit," he said. He showed how to shade with the side of the pencil and lift highlights with a kneaded eraser. Devon tried it and looked surprised when his own lines smoothed out. Mrs. Nguyen smiled without making a big deal of it. "There's room for both of you," she said. "Art needs many hands." Late in the afternoon, Miss Alvarez sat with Malik to go over next steps. "Tomorrow we start ID," she said. "We'll visit the office with a letter from the center and your school records if we can get them. It may take time. We will keep breathing. Meanwhile, I'll write a simple plan for the week: school re-entry meeting, check-ins, poster work, and sleep at the Hart House. I'll text Mr. Whitaker so he's in the loop, if that's okay." Malik agreed. Just as they were wrapping up, a maintenance worker from the city walked through the lobby with bright reflectors on his jacket. He pinned a notice near the entrance: "Underpass clearing tonight, no access after 9 p.m. Malik read it. His old space would be gone by morning. The notice did not scare him the way it would have yesterday. It simply underlined the truth: a door was closing, and he had already stepped toward another one. Evening settled. Malik returned to the Hart House with his poster board tucked in a sleeve Mrs. Nguyen had given him. Dinner was simple: vegetable soup, a slice of toast, and an apple cut into neat wedges. Mrs. Hart asked about his favorite breakfast foods and wrote oatmeal plus cinnamon on a small list. "Tomorrow then," she said. The house rules were clear and kind. Malik took a short shower and watched the steam curl against the mirror. He set his new coat on the back of the chair, his boots on the tray by the door, his notebook in the desk drawer where paper waited like a promise kept. He sat at the desk lamp and redrew the lost photo from memory. He pictured his mother's eyes first, then the line of her hand holding flowers. He wrote the words from the back softly on the bottom of the page: "Stay kind, even when the world is not." The letters wavered and then steadied. He placed the drawing in the notebook, closed the cover, and pressed his palm on top for a long moment, like he was sealing a letter he would one day mail to a better future. A little before lights out, Mr. Whitaker called the house phone. Mrs. Hart brought it to the door and passed it to Malik. "Just checking on you," Mr. Whitaker said. "Is the room warm enough? Are you settled?" "It's warm," Malik said. "I have a desk. I started my poster. I feel new." He did not have a better word, so he let that one stand. "New is good," Mr. Whitaker replied. "Tomorrow I'll swing by the center for your meeting with Miss Alvarez. I'll bring cocoa." He paused. "Proud of you, son." He had not called Malik that before. The word landed softly and did not break. After the call, Malik stepped to the window and lifted the curtain an inch. Snow fell slower now, like feathers. Across the street, a porch light flicked on. Somewhere farther away, trucks would be moving under the overpass, pushing old snow out of the shadows. Here, in this small room, a lamp glowed, a pencil lay ready, and a bed weighted with a clean blanket that did not judge how many nights it had taken for him to find it. He turned off the lamp and lay down. The ceiling was plain. He traced the edges of the room with his eyes, learning the shape of safety: door, chair, desk, lamp, window, bed. He listened to the sounds that belonged to home's pipes humming, a clock ticking, a quiet step in the hallway that did not hurry. He thought of the poster and the hands holding a shared scarf. He thought of Devon and hoped the flyer did not end up crumpled in a pocket forever. He thought of Miss Alvarez's calm voice, of Mrs. Hart's rules that felt like arms, of Mr. Whitaker's cough easing after water, of the way a person can be held up by many small, steady things. Before sleep, he made one more plan in his head. Tomorrow he would finish the first draft of the poster. He would ask Mrs. Nguyen how to fix the angle of a thumb so it looked more real. He would meet Miss Alvarez, begin the ID steps, and not panic when lines looked long. He would invite Devon back to the art room and show him how to blend pencil with tissue. He would keep the words one night at a time as a lantern inside his chest. Outside, Snow whispered. Inside, Malik's breathing slowed. The storm was not gone from the world, but inside him, something had changed shape. Fear was still there, but it had scooted over to make room for a new thing: quiet courage, the kind that wakes up each morning and tries again. And in that space, on that winter night, a boy who had learned to survive in the cold learned the first soft steps of building a life that was warm. A week passed, and the city slowly dug itself out from the snow. Malik woke at the Hart house to the soft sound of a kettle and the smell of cinnamon. Mrs. Hart set a bowl of oatmeal on the table and slid over a little dish of raisins. Big day, she said with a smile. Eat well. You'll need steady hands. Malik nodded, spooned carefully, and felt calm settle in his chest the way warm tea settles in the belly. On the chair rested his coat, now dry and neatly folded. By the door, his new boots waited like two loyal guards. He checked his poster one more time where it lay on the desk, two hands, one young and one old, lifting a shared scarf while snow fell, a small street lamp holding a circle of light, and the words at the bottom, "Warm hands save lives." The pencil lines were clean. The shading made the fingers look real. Mrs. Nguyen had helped him fix the curve of a thumb. Devon had tried a few strokes, too, and laughed softly when the shadows behaved. Before leaving, Malik opened his notebook and looked at the drawing he had made from memory of his mother holding flowers. He touched the corner like a quiet hello, then closed the cover and slipped it into his pocket. He was not leaving it behind again. At the community center, Miss Alvarez met him at the front desk. "Ready?" she asked. He nodded. They had already made progress, a temporary letter from the center, a plan for ID, and a school re-entry meeting on the calendar. The steps were still many, but they no longer felt like a wall, they felt like stairs that he could climb, one at a time. By mid-morning, the gym at Mr. Whitaker's old school began to fill. Long tables held warm drinks and simple snacks. Posters from the city contest lined one side of the room. Some showed winter hats and mittens. Others pictured safe bus stops or a bright red phone for emergencies. Malik carried his poster in both hands. When he mounted it on the board, he stepped back. For a moment, the gym noise faded. He saw only the two hands and the shared scarf and the small street lamp's patient light. He remembered the cold night and the old man's steady eyes. He remembered his own hands shaking less when kindness was near. Mr. Whitaker arrived leaning on his cane, cheeks bright, eyes kind. "There you are," he said, touching Malik's shoulder with a firm, grateful hand. "You look ready." He wore a simple suit and a tie that had tiny blue dots. He looked like a man who had found his purpose again and had ironed it smooth. Mrs. Nguyen appeared with a stack of blank cards and handed one to Malik. "If people ask about your art, write your name and a few words they can take with them," she said. Something simple, something true. Malik thought for a moment and wrote, "Malik, I draw what warmth looks like." By noon, the gym hummed. Miss Alvarez greeted volunteers and checked her clipboard. Mrs. Hart stacked cups and made sure the hot water did not run out. Devon stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching everything with a careful look that was half interest and half self-protection. When he met Malik's eyes, Malik lifted his chin in a small hello. Devon lifted his back, then drifted closer to the poster wall to stand beside him. "You did the scarf," Devon said, keeping his voice low. "We did," Malik answered. You helped me find the shadow under the fingers. Devon smiled with the corner of his mouth. Maybe, he said, as if the word was a small gift he was trying out. A city arts coordinator stepped up to the microphone. The gym softened into a hush. Thank you for coming to our winter safety event, she said. Today we share stories, celebrate art, and support our neighbors. She spoke about simple steps, checking on seniors during storms, making sure young people had safe places to sleep, keeping sidewalks clear of ice. Then she announced the poster winners. Third prize went to a bold red design of a hat and scarf. Second prize went to a poster that showed a bus stop circle lit like a small sundae, and first prize, the coordinator said, her voice warm, goes to a piece that shows kindness as action, two hands lifting together under a winter sky. She called Malik's name. For a breath, Malik did not move. He had not expected the sound of his name through a microphone. It felt large. It felt like a bell. Miss Alvarez gave him a little nod and an encouraging smile. Go on, she whispered. This is your moment. He walked to the front, legs steady, face calm. The coordinator handed him a simple certificate and an envelope with a gift card for art supplies from a local store. The gym clapped. The sound swelled and then settled into a gentle warmth, like a blanket being laid over a sleeping child. Would you like to say a word? The coordinator asked quietly. Malik looked at the small crowd. He saw Mr. Whitaker's proud eyes, Mrs. Hart's kind hands, Miss Alvarez's steady smile, Mrs. Nguyen's paint-flecked sleeve, and Devon's careful half-grin. He thought of his mother's words. He stepped to the microphone. Thank you, he said. His voice was soft but clear. I drew this because sometimes a scarf is more than a scarf. It is a promise we hold together. I was cold and someone helped me. Now I want to help, too. That is all. He stepped back. It was enough. After the applause, Mr. Whitaker moved to the podium. He did not speak like a man giving a grand speech, he spoke like a teacher sitting at the edge of a desk, talking to students he cared about. He told the story of the snowy night, the fall, the scattered medicine bottles, and the boy who knelt beside him and kept him talking and tied the scarf tight. He told the gym that the boy's name was Malik, and that the boy had returned a wallet without the need for praise. He paused, let the room hold that picture, then continued. Kindness showed up in front of me, he said. I promised someone long ago I would pay attention when it did. That is why I am here today to announce a new effort. He gestured toward a simple banner near the stage, Warm Hands Project. The letters were plain. The promise was not. This project will fund emergency winter beds, help with IDs, and small art kits for young people, he said. It starts today in memory of my wife, Martha, and in honor of Malik. He explained how the small foundation he managed would seed the effort, and how the community center would guide the funds to where they were needed most. There were no complicated words, no hard-to-follow numbers. It felt like a plan made of doors that opened. The gym responded with a long, warming applause. People turned to each other and nodded. Miss Alvarez leaned close to Malik. This will help many, she said. You started a chain of steady things. During the break, a local print shop owner approached Malik and Mr. Whitaker. He had ink on his fingers and a friendly, practical face. I run East Side Print, he said. We make posters and flyers for the city and for schools. We need a part-time helper with a good eye for clean lines after school hours. If you're interested, I can teach you basic scanning art, prepping files, checking proofs. It's simple work, but it's careful work. I think you'd be good at it. Malik felt a small, bright spark inside. He looked to Miss Alvarez, who nodded. We can fit this into the plan, she said. After school, a few hours, close to the center, with a safe ride option if the weather turns. Yes, Malik said to the shop owner, his voice sure. I want to learn. They shook hands. It felt like shaking hands with a new chapter. A teacher from the neighborhood school came by next. She had spoken with Miss Alvarez earlier. We have a re-entry meeting on Tuesday, she said. We'll make sure you have supplies, and that you start in classes that match your strengths. I saw your poster. You have a way with stories and images. We can use that in class projects. She smiled and added, you'll have a locker. Bring your sketchbook. Malik pictured a locker with a simple lock and a small shelf. He pictured his notebook lying inside without fear. Thank you, he said. As people drifted back to their seats, Devon hovered near the edge of the crowd. He looked at the Warm Hands banner and then at Malik's poster. When Malik turned toward him, Devon spoke first, voice low. You did it, he said. You really did it? He paused as if testing an idea that felt new in his mouth. Maybe I could try that bridge class you talked about. And the art room. If there's room for me. There's room, Malik said. There's always room. He took a small card from the stack Mrs. Nguyen had given him and wrote Devon's name on it, then added the words, come draw with me. He handed it over like a bridge. The second half of the event flowed like a good story. The city shared winter plans. Volunteers signed up for shifts. The arts coordinator asked Malik to stand by his poster for a few minutes to answer gentle questions. He did, and he spoke simply. He described how shading could make hands look like they were holding real weight. He showed a child how to use a tissue to blend pencil for soft snow. He wrote his name on a few cards for people to take to their classrooms. He did not talk about being homeless, he talked about being seen and about showing up when someone falls. People understood. Near the end, the gym doors opened with a cold rush and a community officer from the precinct stepped in, hat pushed back, cheeks red. She spoke to a volunteer, who pointed toward Malik and Mr. Whitaker. The officer walked over holding a small plastic bag with care. Inside, wrapped in a clean napkin, was a photo of a woman holding flowers. A neighbor found this near the soup kitchen and brought it to the station, she said. We remembered your note, Malik. Is this yours? Malik's breath caught. He reached out with hands that did not shake and took the bag. Through the clear plastic, the familiar smile shone up at him, and the soft writing on the back was visible like a whisper, stay kind, even when the world is not. He looked at the officer, at Mr. Whitaker, at Miss Alvarez, and then at the gym full of people who had become more than faces. Yes, he said. It's mine. The room seemed to grow warmer, though the doors were still open. Mr. Whitaker placed a hand over Malik's, light and sure. Some things do find their way back, he said. When the event ended, the light outside was already thinning into late afternoon blue. People stacked chairs. The banner came down and was rolled carefully for another day. Miss Alvarez handed Malik a printed plan for the week, school meeting, ID appointment, first afternoon at East Side Print, check-ins with her and Mrs. Hart. She kept the language simple and clear, just as she had promised on the first day. I'll walk you through each step, she said. No surprises. They all stepped out into the soft snow together, Mr. Whitaker, Miss Alvarez, Mrs. Hart, Mrs. Nguyen, the print shop owner, the teacher, the officer, and Devon. It made Malik smile to see how many hands can carry a good day without dropping it. On the sidewalk, Mr. Whitaker adjusted his scarf and nodded toward the corner where they had first met. Shall we visit that spot? He asked. Just for a minute. They walked there, the group thinning as people took different turns, until it was only Mr. Whitaker and Malik by the familiar street lamp. The snow on the curb had been pushed back. The ice was gone. The place looked smaller than it did on that hard night, as if fear had once made it bigger than it really was. You saved my life, Mr. Whitaker said, not as a grand line but as a plain truth. You gave mine a new start, Malik replied. They stood without speaking for a few breaths. In the quiet, Malik felt something settle in him, a kind of balance. He did not feel like a boy on the edge anymore. He felt like a person standing in the middle of a path with clear steps behind and clear steps ahead. That evening, back at the Hart house, he set the returned photo gently in the top drawer of the desk and placed his notebook beside it. He wrote a short note to himself, "Start again, and keep going." He taped the Warm Hands project flyer inside the notebook's cover. Then he took out the envelope from the art store and planned what to buy: a better pencil, a small set of charcoal sticks, a folder to keep drawings safe. The phone buzzed on the table, Mr. Whitaker's number. "Just one more thing," the older man said when Malik answered. "Tomorrow after your meeting, I'll drop by the print shop with you for the first hour. We'll celebrate with Coco after, like I promised." "I'll be there," Malik said. He set the phone down and pulled his chair close to the desk. Under the lamp, he began a new drawing. This time he saw the gym, the banner, the crowd, and the small circle of light around a boy and an old man by a street lamp. He drew Devon near the doorway, not outside it. He drew Miss Alvarez with her clipboard and her calm smile. He drew Mrs. Hart's hands holding a teacup. He drew the print shop owner with ink on his fingers, shaking a new hand. In the corner, he drew a tiny photo frame with a flower held in a gentle grip. When he finished, he looked at the page for a long time. The lines were clean, but more than that, they were connected. He felt it in his chest, that invisible thread that ran from the night of the storm to this quiet desk. It ran through a scarf, a cane, a cup of tea, a bowl of oatmeal, a poster on a gym wall, and a plan printed in simple words. It ran through him, too, steady and warm. He turned off the lamp. Snow slid along the window like a soft brush. In the dark, the room held its shape: door, chair, desk, lamp, window, bed. Malik lay down and pulled the blanket up to his chin. Tomorrow would bring forms and new hallways and the careful work of a print shop. It would bring small worries, too, because that is how days are. But he did not fear the morning. He welcomed it. Before sleep, he whispered the words on the back of the photo, not as a rule but as a promise he wanted to keep: "Stay kind, even when the world is not." Then he added a new line, one he had earned: "And let others be kind to you." With that, he closed his eyes. The storm outside had not fully ended, but inside, a warm and steady life had begun.